interrupting. So thank you for recording the meeting, our tech masters. All right. If everyone could share in the pledge, and then be sure to mute yourself when you're not talking. But you can unmute now if you'd like to share in the pledge. I don't know if Larry has a flag in his background. Sometimes he's on top of that, or Len. But we can do it without. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
United
States
States of America,
and
to
to
the
to the republic
which
for
it
which it stands,
one
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. That was a bit choppy. We haven't all been on Zoom in a while. We used to have some folks in person, and I think they anchored that. It's a challenge to all be talking at once, but we're here to practice. We're here to learn from one another, and we're so grateful to see folks. Tough in the summer to get together anyway, so this is a great opportunity. Okay, if everyone could mute yourselves, I would be happy to hand over the floor to Larry, our Toastmaster of the day. Larry.
Thank you very much, Kate. Today, let me think. Oh, wait, procrastination. That is our theme of the day. Now, we'll get into what procrastination means in a little while. Maybe. But, yeah, let's go into our roles before we do anything, because that way I won't be procrastinating about what's going to happen during the meeting. So today, in my lineup, I am missing a timer. So if we do not have a timer, I would be happy to do the timing role, but I do need a quiz master. And if we have a volunteer as a quiz master out there, now the quiz master will be listening attentively throughout the meeting and quizzing us at the end to see if we were good listeners. Does anyone want to volunteer to be our quiz master?
Larry, I will quiz.
Thank you so much. And Jill will be our quiz master today. All right. Let's begin our meeting with our inspiration. And our inspiration is from one of our newest members, Zach Brado. Zach.
Good morning. This is my first time doing inspiration, so I'm assuming it's just a quote, but if there's something that I do incorrectly, let me know. But I do want to share a quote from one of my favorite animated movies from Kung Fu Panda. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why we call it the present. Master Oogway.
Thank you very much, Zach. And you did a fine job. I appreciate you. Inspiration is basically where we would give an inspiring thought to all of our members and guests to welcome them to our meeting in the morning. One of the most important things that we do in Toastmasters is that we listen for words that perhaps are not supposed to be used at a certain time, grammar, master, and word master. And there's an important role that we call the WAG, and that is Beth Banks today. Beth will be our WAG master. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing today, Beth.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Yes, my job is the WAG today. I had to come up with a word. So my word of the day is dawdle. I will put it in the chat. I like dawdle. Dawdle is to waste time, idle, or move slowly. So, fellow Toastmasters, please use the word dawdle throughout the morning at our meeting, particularly those people who are called on for table topics. You do have to use the word of the day. I will also be listening for particularly good grammar or those little ouch moments that maybe are not so good. So I will be reporting about those at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much, Beth. Also this morning, Steve Smith has been searching the internet for an appropriate quote today. And Steve is our quote master. Please don't dawdle, but show us what you have for us today, Steve.
Okay. Well, when I found out I was the quote master, I decided I better not dawdle around because, as many of you know, working on a computer is not one of my better skills. But I did find a few goodies. Putting off an easy thing makes it hard. Putting off a hard thing makes it impossible. George H. Lorimer. In a moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. The worst thing you can do is nothing. Theodore Roosevelt. I'll do one more. The greatest amount of wasted time is time not getting started. Dawson Trotman.
Steve, thank you very much for your input today with our quotes. Some very appropriate quotes today. Now, we do have a jest to get us all smiling this morning. Please welcome Dave Channon. Hello, Dave.
Hi, you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Is this a Verizon commercial?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I will not dawdle at all. I'm going to take everyone back to the 1960s. And my question to you is, what do you call a hippie's wife? Answer, Mississippi.
Okay. I got it. I think.
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm glad you didn't dawdle around looking for.
No, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. Okay. Well, today, our theme of today is procrastination. Now, I noticed that our general evaluator is not online with us today, and that would mean that I don't have a general evaluator that wants to perhaps evaluate the meeting and our evaluators today. I might even have to self-evaluate. Who knows? Unless we have a volunteer general evaluator.
Oh, he just came on.
Oh, he did. Okay. Well, in that case, Marty must have been procrastinating this morning. So we'll get back to him. So procrastination. I know we all know what that means, but procrastination is something that human beings have been doing for centuries. The problem is timeless. In fact, ancient Greek philosophers had like Socrates and Aristotle, they had a word to describe the behavior. It's called akrasia. Now, you may think that has something to do with other words, but we'll leave it at that for right now. But why do we procrastinate? All right, definitions are great and all, but why do we procrastinate? What's going on in our brain that causes us to avoid things that we know that we should be doing? It's a good time to bring some science into the discussion about procrastination. Behavioral psychologist research has revealed that there's a phenomenon called time inconsistency, which helps explain why procrastination seems to pull us in despite our good intentions. Time inconsistency refers to the tendency of humans and their brain to value immediate rewards instead of future rewards. So it may be that when we're laying in bed and we hear the alarm go off and we hit the snooze and it says, well, you know what, I could get 5 more minutes of sleep instead of perhaps getting up and moving around and getting your day started on time, perhaps. Procrastination. Well, the best way to understand is that you have 2 selves, your present self and your future self. When we set our goals for ourselves, like perhaps losing weight, which is something that I've been doing for 15, 20 years, and obviously I set that goal, but maybe I'm procrastinating a little in the outcome. You know, you're actually making plans for your future, what sometimes other things get in the way, procrastination. Well, we'll get more into self-procrastination and things a little bit later in our meeting. But one of the things that we as Toastmasters do is we do something what is called impromptu speaking. Today we have our immediate past president, Kate Orr, will be our table topics master, and she'll explain a little bit what she's going to do. And don't dawdle. Oh, by the way, you must use that word, but she'll get to that. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Okay, no more procrastination. Kate Orr, table topics.
Thank you, Larry. I'll get around to it one of these days. Oh my goodness. All of us suffer from procrastination. I wish I could put my camera on. I can't. I'm having some tech issues. Thank you everyone for understanding. I am going to call on 3 members who don't already have assigned roles, maybe guests if you're interested. We have roles that we share and rotate each quarter. So everyone is taking different roles today. So we usually have that done in advance. And then there is some shuffling around as needed with what we call housekeeping on the day of occasionally. So I will call on 3 of our members today, members or guests, and ask you a question about the topic. You can answer or talk about really anything you'd like. Your goal is to speak for 1.5 to 2 minutes. And I think Larry offered to be the timer, the stand-in timer. Thank you. I would if I weren't already having tech issues. You can't see my screen. You can't see if I put the colors up. We go by like street light colors. So we have yellow, green, yellow, and red. The background behind Larry, I'm going to suggest that folks pin him. He's pinned by the tech master here, so that's excellent. It shows green when you have reached your mark, and this is for the off-the-cuff speeches and the prepared speeches that we'll get to shortly. So 1.5, you reach on green. 1 minute and 45 seconds is the yellow. And then the red is at 2 minutes. You've hit red, you want to wrap it up. Stop before red if you can. And you're going to try to address the topic. This is great for us all to practice. This is something we all need and strive for, improving our skills, like an elevator speech. What are we going to talk to with that person on the elevator, or maybe at a party, maybe at a business lunch, even our friends and family on a more personal level, but we're also looking at professional development here. Okay, procrastination. I'm going to call on Phil first. Phil, are you available to speak today? Excellent. I see Phil. Phil, pros and cons of being a procrastinator. Phil, use the word of the day. Pros and cons of being a procrastinator. Phil Russell.
You can turn your mic on. Unmute. Unmute, Phil. Unmute.
He's just procrastinating. The timer has not begun. Usually you do this very well, Phil. I think he's doing it on purpose. I almost think he's doing it on purpose.
Procrastinating this morning.
Phil, we'll come back to you. How's that sound? Chew on that question. How about Margot? Are you interested?
That's not the question, Kate. You have to be interested for our guests. When you're called on, this is an opportunity to use all your skills. So
this is, yes, and Margot's not on the schedule already for another. So I love this perspective that we've been chosen and given this opportunity to practice. Yep. How about growing up, were you a procrastinator or the opposite? Growing up, were you a procrastinator or the opposite? Use the word of the day, Margot.
So you're asking basically, did I dawdle around? Well, if there was something I really didn't want to do, I had a very easy way of dawdling and getting out of a job. And that was, quite frankly, to read. See, my mother was a reading teacher. And if you were found with a book in her hand, she'd give you some extra time. But in general, no, I'm not a procrastinator, as most of you probably know. I'm the one who has plans for how we're going to deal with this, that, and the other thing way into the future. In fact, I once made the comment that I was going to wing something at a meeting, and one of my friends stood up in the meeting and said, "You've never had to wing anything in your entire life. You plan everything you want to do." So dawdling is not much in my vocabulary, but I have found a very interesting way to get prepared to do something. Some of the things I have to do, including writing the murder mysteries or planning an event, and I never know where to go. So if I play solitaire and stare at my screen and play games and just let my mind relax, all of a sudden I figure out what I have to do next. So while I didn't procrastinate when I was young, today maybe it could be seen as procrastination, but I actually am getting things done. Now, according to my little stopwatch here, I'm at 1:40. So I am going to stop. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you so much, Margot, for showing us how it's done. And she reached her time. All right. It looks like Phil may have left to come back. So we'll wait and call on him third. How about, we have two guests today. For anyone who hopped on a little bit late, they kind of were introduced a little bit right before we were getting started. We have Therese and Esther on as guests today. And I would love to call on, I see Esther on my screen first. Esther, may I call on you for this? Oh, wait, Margot said no choices. You can pass if you feel like it, especially as a guest. We'll let you pass. We're all here, though, to improve and to grow. And she's smiling still, so I guess we're calling on Esther.
I have been called on, so I will gladly step up this morning and give it my best.
Okay, don't dawdle. She says, I'm not a dawdler. I'm going to give this my best shot. Was there anything that made you procrastinate attending a Toastmasters meeting, Esther? Was there anything that made you procrastinate attending a Toastmasters meeting? And use the word of the day. Go right ahead.
Well, I have known about Toastmasters as an organization for a very long time. And while I will say I didn't dawdle as far as reaching out and getting more information and attending a meeting, I maybe procrastinated a little. I recently had a change in my career where I didn't leave my industry, but I took on a new position within my industry. And I am looking to really further develop my professional skills to the benefit of my new position. And so that is why I have ceased procrastinating, reached out to Toastmasters at this time, and am really enjoying the meeting so far. And I'm looking forward to whatever is possible with the organization in the future.
Excellent, Esther. Thank you very much. We have two speakers, kind of three. Is Phil back on? Did he make it? Did he leave? He's here. I can hear you now, sir.
I have technical difficulties. I don't know.
You're running the same boat as me. I don't understand what it is. But if you are willing to join us with your lovely voice and tell us the pros and cons of procrastinating, you'll be our third and final speaker for Table Topics today. What do you think, Phil? Go ahead.
Madam, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. They're doing this update on this, whatever is doing this to me from the Zoom land, these new Zooms. I am not the most technical person in the world, and when something changes, I get baffled, and it takes me a while to do it. I won't dawdle on it, but I'll get it done sometime in the next 12 or 14 weeks. That's not procrastination. That's just plain old putting it off. Procrastination is such a wonderful thing. Why do something today that you could put off until tomorrow? I know somebody else said that. I know they did. But I'll not dawdle. I'll just meander on as I always do, because meandering is one thing I like to do. It's just stream of consciousness that we do, go from one place to another. I have to see who's doing my timing here so I can keep an eye on it, but I can't. Well, now I haven't watched the time, but I will keep going for just a moment, just to make sure I got my procrastination done. It's a great thing to do. Why do it? It's not worth doing. So just keep procrastinating. Madam Topics Master.
I guess you made time there. Let's get an official timers report, Larry, if you feel up for the task. He's double teaming here as Toastmaster of the Day and Timer of the Day. Larry, how did they do?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Today, without any dawdling around, we had Margot, who was self-timing. That was double duty over there herself. And I was so enthralled by just listening when she began, I forgot to hit start. So I had her at 1:31, which she probably went to about 1:35 because who knows, I might have hit the wrong button. But Margot did qualify at 1:31. We also had Esther. And Esther, thank you for stepping up to the plate. Typically with our table topics, we go 1.5 minutes and then we would see the green light. Today, Esther spoke for 54 seconds, which you almost hit that 1 minute mark. In most clubs, it's 1 to 2 minutes. So you would have qualified in most clubs. So therefore, we are going to say that you somewhat qualified this morning. That was an executive decision. And then Phil, who was completely untech today, but he, as being a seasoned Toastmaster, didn't need anyone to do his timing. He came in at 1 minute and 32 seconds. So Margot and also Phil didn't need me to time. And Esther, you didn't need me either today. So therefore, all three qualified. And then Kate, I guess we'll have to find out if they use the word of the day. What do you think?
That's right. All right, Beth.
Yes, all three used the word of the day. Phil used it twice, so they all qualify for using the word of the day. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And qualify means we're going to vote. We tend to vote on our top speakers, prepared speakers, and our evaluators. So Phil's not listed here. I'm not sure why. And Esther's spelled wrong, but you know what? Folks are juggling a lot behind the scenes. So thank you for your understanding and go ahead and vote.
Okay, while we are voting, I am going to call on, let me see. Yes, he's here. Marty, you are my general evaluator today. And if you don't mind, while everyone is voting, without further ado, would you mind letting us know what the general evaluator's role is today?
Thank you, Larry, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guest. I will not dawdle this morning in my role as general evaluator. I will be evaluating the Toastmaster of the day, and I will be evaluating the evaluators, and I will report back at the end of the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marty. And now today, our theme today was procrastination. So, you know, when you procrastinate, you cannot rely on long-term consequences and rewards to motivate your present self. Instead, you have to find a way to make future rewards and punishments into the present moment. You have to make the future consequences become present consequences. That's exactly what happens during the moment when we finally move beyond procrastination and take action on something. For example, let's say that we have a report to write or a speech. You've known about it for weeks and you continue to put it off day after day after day. You experience a little bit of nagging pain and anxiety thinking about perhaps that speech or a paper that you had to write, but not enough about doing anything about it. Procrastination. Then suddenly, the day before the deadline, and you know that it's going to happen, the future consequences turn into present consequences. And you write that report or that speech even the morning of or the night before. The pain of procrastinating finally escalates, and you've crossed the action line. And by crossing that action line, something happens, and we have an overwhelming feeling of accomplishment. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but before we do, we have our voting all completed, and as Toastmasters, we have 3 speakers today, and the speakers are an important part of our Toastmasters meeting. Hopefully they didn't procrastinate in writing their speeches today, and we have 3 speakers that will be giving us wonderful speeches. One will be a I guess you would say, icebreaker. And then we have Sylvia, and we also have Gerald that will be giving a speech. Our first evaluator today is Mr. David Licata. And David, you will be evaluating Mary and her speech. So Dave, you want to tell us about Mary's speech? You can't hear me. We can't hear you. All right.
Can you
Well,
hear me now?
we
Yes,
can
we
hear you
can.
now.
Oh, boy. All right. This is a very exciting time. It's early in Mary's Toastmaster career. We're looking forward to great things. And this is her job this morning. The speech is from Pathways. It's writing a speech with purpose. So this is how the new people get started. The purpose of the project is to learn or review basic methods for putting a speech together and present a well-organized speech on any topic. I'm looking forward to this run to be with Mary throughout her career and help her and point out and evaluate and encourage. Mary, you're going to do great.
Do I start? Okay. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I had the opportunity to go to Italy with my sister's Latin club. In 2012, we flew from Toronto to Milan for a bus tour through Verona, Venice, Florence, Rome, Sorrento, Pompeii, and the island of Capri. Our trip was mostly walking tours through the cities. The tour guide would hold her arm up and say, "Andiamo," which means let's go, and we would all follow her. At 2 p.m. every afternoon, we would stop for a cappuccino. And in some places, the adults would also have limoncello. My favorite city in Italy is the capital, which is Rome. It is my favorite because of the architecture. Rome is one of the most expensive cities in Europe. The Vatican is one of the most famous places in Rome. We visited the Vatican and toured the Sistine Chapel. The frescoes painted by Michelangelo on the ceiling are beautiful. We brought rosaries that were blessed at the Vatican. We visited the Colosseum and saw many of the beautiful fountains in Rome, including the Trevi Fountain. We visited Florence on Easter Sunday. Michelangelo created the sculpture of David there. He started at age 26 and it took him 4 years to complete it. We took a boat ride from Sorrento to the island of Capri for a day. Then we took a trolley ride up a large hill for a walking tour around the island. We saw beautiful gardens and spectacular views. We also took a boat ride around the entire island and saw green, blue, and magenta water in the Mediterranean Sea. We spent one day at Pompeii. It is near Mount Vesuvius. In 79 AD, the volcano on Mount Vesuvius erupted and covered Pompeii with ash for many centuries. It was founded accidentally in 1747. 1 million tons of ash were removed. It is the best preserved archaeological site with many artifacts, with many people trapped inside the ash, along with many artifacts from that time. Even today, they are uncovering new artifacts. Venice is the city of canals. It is known for its beautiful glass. And I bought a glass horse there that was blown on site. In Venice, there are many bridges, islands, churches, small canals, and gondolas. Originally, the gondolas were just used for nobles. We enjoyed a gondola ride while we were there. Verona was the setting for Romeo and Juliet, the couple of Shakespeare's other plays. We saw the window where Juliet talked to Romeo. The food in Italy was really good. They had Nutella, and a lot of various places and street carts. Gelato is so good. I think it's better than normal ice cream. My mom said the wine and pizza was one of her favorite things we had. We also loved shopping at the outdoor street markets in Sorrento. Everything in Italy is incredibly old and ancient. It makes it so different from the US. It's a beautiful country. I had a wonderful time there. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Bravo, Mary. And Larry, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Mary. We want to congratulate you on your speech. Good job. And I will now go on to our second evaluator today, Mike Licata. And I do believe Mike is online with us. Is he in studio B, C, D?
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. Sylvia is speaking out of the Pathways. She is doing the question and answer speech. Mr. Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes. The purpose of this project is for the member to learn about and practice facilitating a question and answer session. The purpose of the speech is also for the member to practice delivering an informative speech and running a well-organized question and answer session. And Mr. Timer, Mr. Toastmaster, you have her speech title. Or do you want me to give it?
Please give it if you would.
Yep, absolutely. So her speech title is How Social Media Affects the U.S. Sylvia Baptiste.
Morning, Mr. Timer. This speech is supposed to be 15 to 20 minutes. Just to let you know, it's a little bit longer than 5 to 7. but I'd gladly do it in 5 to 7 if you like.
Does it include the Q&A or is that separate?
That's including,
Okay, thank you.
including.
Rock and roll.
Morning, everyone, and welcome guests to my presentation. This morning, the presentation is the social media effects on youth and us as adults. And when I was doing some research with this presentation, even in Pathfinders, get a load of that one, Pathways, the criteria they tell you is do a topic that you are an expert in, so you feel comfortable and you could answer anything that is thrown at you. Well, I did the total opposite. I am not an expert. Please remember that. I am not an expert in social media. As some people know in our club, I have difficulties with technology and youth, mental health of youth especially. That is not a strong point of mine. But I do have a very strong opinion regarding social media and our children today. So I'm going to focus on what attracts, what influences, and why teens, even adults, have this addiction to social media. So if you grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even the early 90s, you could see how our technology has advanced, and some for the good, and that's what we want. At the end of this presentation, as I said, we will be doing some questions and answers. So please keep your questions to the end, and we could even debate about some things. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion that I do, and I respect that. But first, what is social media? Well, we have many different platforms of social media. You have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And this is the great opportunity to have us express ourselves, build communities, promote social causes. Really great, even for our club. I mean, look, we have Marshall in China, we have David in North Carolina, and it draws everybody together. So the main purpose for youth, our kids, to use social media is talking to friends. They want to join groups. They want to stay connected. They want to learn more, and just being on there, they're happy. It's attraction that it's self-expression, creative outlet, and open space. For some, social media is a platform to meet creative people, to be inspired by others, to share their journey, and just, being together. But the influence, boy, the influence is something. Exposure to social media is overstimulating the brain of these youth today. It can trigger pathways comparable to addictions, expressive to the linking of sleep problems, attention problems, feeling overwhelmed at times. And the youth are very vulnerable. In Toronto, and one expert did a presentation, and they just said their brains are still developing, and it's just causing havoc with them. So why is this destroying the youth today? The addictive pulls of social media, as a result in the youth spending extensive time in screens, disrupting their sleep patterns, as I mentioned, social interactions, and their well-being. So this has an impact on them. And the media is just eating at them. So if we take away their phones, maybe, not all the time, but take away the time that they use on the screen, maybe they'll have face-to-face interactions and learn from each other that way, like we used to do. As I said, I have very strong opinions on phones. And I'll just tell you a little story since I have the time. As many of you know, I work in human resource for a nonprofit organization. And one day, earlier this year, we were setting up interviews for our summer youth camp. And we were looking for an internship. We received funding from a local foundation for someone to come in and do a STEM program with the children during summer camp, which was great. So I can't be at every interview because I'm department of one, but I won't let managers do interviews by themselves. So I said to the manager, the vice president of children's programs, I said, you know what? Unfortunately, you just are a little bit overwhelmed. Let me call. You pick a few people. I'll call them, set up an interview, time and day, and we'll get them done really quick. Great, she said. So she gave me 4 names and they looked great on paper. I thought, we're going to have a really hard time getting this going. So I called number 1 and she said, oh yeah, I could do Tuesday at 10 o'clock, no problem. Put her down. Call number 2. I can't do mornings, but I could do the afternoon because I'm still in school. Great, no problem. 2 o'clock, you're penciled in. Now here where it gets very interesting. Number 3, when I called, said, well, you want me to come in the office for this interview? Could we do this on Zoom or another platform, Google? And I thought, okay, maybe she had COVID and she doesn't want to expose us. That would be great. I will accommodate her. So I just like, well, what is your reason why you don't want to come in? Or you don't live far from the office. I see your address on your resume, 1.5 miles, that far. Oh, well, I talked to other people. They say, you don't do that anymore. That's kind of old school. I just don't want to come in. And I said, well, I really didn't think about doing this over Zoom. Let me think about this and I'll get back to you. And I hung up. 1.5 hours, 2 hours later, and I don't know why moms do this, but mom called and asked for me. And she said, well, you talked to my daughter this morning and are you going to call her back for this interview? And I said, no, not really. I said, I don't understand why she doesn't want to come in. She put on her resume, she wants to go to school to be a teacher in the fall. And I don't know why she wants to do face-to-face interviews. She'll be doing many of them as she gets older and go into this career. She'll be face-to-face with children and she will not be on Zoom all the time. Oh, okay. And I said, thank you for your time. And I hung up. Why do moms do that? I don't know. I'm going to blame the mom this time. But as you could tell, teens, they are the most on social media. Between the ages of 18 to 22, 40% of the Americans addicted to social media, according to Common Sense. And does anyone know anything about Common Sense research? They're a nonprofit in America. They are here. And their goal is to do ratings and ratings for social media usage and what is good for the children and not. And according to them, and they do many surveys, the 18 to 22 age group is on social media, average of 7 hours and 22 minutes per day. Now I do a 7-hour work day, so that's longer than what I work. That's crazy. Ages 8 to 12, they're on from 4 hours and 45 minutes per day. That's the average. So as you could tell, teens, that is just why they can't let go of the phones, let go of the laptops. They have to have that interaction, the likes, the hits, what's going on, and and they think they're being sociable. I don't know. It's for up debate there. But there is some positive things about social media. I'm not going to badger it all, but it does build relationships, staying connected with groups and friends, finding your voice. Some people feel they can talk on social media and not in person, showing empathy and kindness, offering their support through social media. They think they're better communicators. I am not quite sure, and they're like spreading the news, and they have their purpose. So, there is some good social media, but here's some of the dangers of social media, and probably why I don't favor it with the kids. Depression and mental health effects. We already said that. They don't sleep. Their brain's just assimilating and going. Cyberbullying, sexting, exposing harmful content, privacy risks, identity theft, of course. I think almost everyone has been hit with that at one time or another. Online predators, very dangerous. And it does affect your life every day. So addictive social media there, it is crazy. Lost my spot, sorry about that. So mental health, as I'm saying, it affects anxiety, depression, and there's another little thing, fear of missing out with the teens and the youth. It's not good. But I want to go to a different platform. I want to talk about TikTok a little bit. Now, I don't have a TikTok account. I do have a Facebook account. And I'm noticing myself, even on Facebook, I'm reading not what my friends are posting and staying in touch with the class of 1980 in Niagara Falls High School, but I'm on there looking at the reels, which is like TikTok. It's short videos, short little segments. And unfortunately, it keeps my attention because it's only 3 minutes or so. And whatever happened to the people like Margot and Jackie, who could read 1,000 pages of novel in a month, less than a month's time, a couple weeks, days. Now nobody could read 1,000 more pages because it's too long. Their brains are not, they got to move on to something else. So TikTok is supposed to be banned in January, I think the date is January 19th, 2025. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. We'll have to see in January of 2025 if it happens. But the US wants to ban TikTok. So what does that mean? How will this affect us in the US here? There's going to be a career disruption, forcing them to adapt to their constant different ways. They're going to have to seek alternative platforms, and explore new careers paths. So TikTok also serves an informational engine for millions of people, especially Gen Z. That's something. And what about small businesses? More and more small businesses are relying on TikTok to get their product out there, their voice out there to the young people, because they are the people of today who are spending money. So there's like 170 million American users that use TikTok, and they're going, and a lot of them are Generation Z, and they're just, this may just go away. It's hard to believe. Let's see what's. So as I talked about common sense media, which is really interesting, and they do the survey, and people are just, this organization has a lot of information on their website. I would look it up. And remember, this is my opinion, and I do feel very strong about it. TikTok says they allow 13-year-olds on their platform. It's not recommended. So that number, a percentage of people using TikTok, is not going to be 40%. That's probably not even a real number anymore. It's probably more like 55 to 60%. And you're letting the youngers use it, which we understand. What I'm worried about now is AI. AI can do wonders, especially in the medical field, technology field. It could do a lot of good. But I'm not sure, because there's always people out there that find ways to do scams, take advantage of their elderly people who, for money, take advantage of young people, meeting them, voice saying, hey, I'm your distant cousin, whomever. Holograms, I don't think that's a good thing right now. And there's going to be more and more identity theft with AI. It's going to have, it's just going to be. So I'm going to end, and let's go into some questions, and hopefully I'll have the answers. And we can discuss, debate, if you'd like, a little bit about what is going on. Does anyone have a question?
Hey, Sylvia, I do. So you talked already about, this is Kate, the social media, like a lot of it is, it's for money, it's for clicks and likes, and there's a lot of ways that money can be made on social media, right? So, so like, I'm talking with somebody at a post Toasties breakfast, and I'm like, yeah, I need a new dishwasher. So 2 seconds later, of course, it's popping up on Facebook ads or other things. Like, what about the always listening and the always tracking, and like, how do we turn on privacy? I mean, I went in a lot of different directions. So did your speech. So I guess I have a lot going on there wrapped up in that question. What's your take on maybe some of what I just said? I know you're on the yellow if you didn't see it, just FYI.
Well, they say TikTok isn't watching you. But it says it doesn't monitor your entire phone, but it does have access to things you do look up, such as your camera, your microphone, and location. And they are tracking, even though they say they don't, but they're tracking your IP address, your search histories, the contents of the messages that and things you are viewing, like you said, a dishwasher. So it is collecting all that data, and you will see that on Facebook. All of a sudden, that Frigidaire microwave that you were searching, that happened to me, is on every ad. And you're just like, okay, is my house bugged or what the heck? But it is looking at your IP address. And that's probably how they're getting into coax young people online. And it is just scary what's out there. So, and the other thing that people do have a question, and I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. Is they say they don't promote tobacco, alcohol, and drugs because it is harmful to the teens and the youth and some people. But it's hard to believe after you see all the bad negative publicity regarding social media. Somehow, though, they are getting that product, and it may not be TikTok, it might be Facebook, it could be Twitter, something, the challenges, but it does, some things have to be censored, and it does start with the parents. As I said, the kids are on there over 7 hours a day. Parents are working 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day. And so when they come home, put the phone down, get away from that tablet, stop searching your emails. It is just crazy. So thank you everyone for attending my presentation this morning.
Thank you, Sylvia, very much for your speech this morning. We have a third speaker today, and that third speaker is, let me see here, our third speaker will be evaluated by Mike Florio. Mike, tell us a little bit about our speaker, and if you could, please give the title of their speech.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. Dr. Gerald Stevens, who is a DTM. I have the pleasure of evaluating him this morning. He will be speaking from the Pathways Dynamic Leadership Program, Level 3, and he will be connecting with storytelling. Now, Dr. Gerald is very well traveled, and he can tell a story. He does not dawdle around. He gets around. So I'll be very curious to see what his story has to entail today. I do have his speech title. Do you want me to go ahead
Yes,
and
please
throw that out there? Sure. A Trip into History, Dr. Gerald Stevens. A Trip into History.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator and fellow Toastmasters. Do you ever think about going back into history if you time traveled? What do you think what period would you want to go to? Would you want to go at all? Do you think you'd be strung up as a witch or a warlock? I do. Do you worry about the health conditions? What if you had a scratch and got infected? Could you be dead the next week? There are things like this I think of all the time. Last couple of years, I've done a couple trips with my mother-in-law and my wife's nephew. And my mother-in-law is now 90 this year. And we tend to travel back into history a little bit. Last year, we went to Atlantic City. She had some good times in Atlantic City. She wanted to see how it was nowadays. Way different, that's for sure. So this year, we decided to travel back into history to Virginia. A lot of things happen in history in Virginia. You may or may not know. So I do have a slideshow, which sadly you are all subjected to. Just like the old days. This is my vacation, but we'll have some interesting points and try to mix in a little bit of humor. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see if I can get this to work. All right. May take a second. Okay. Let's see. And if it doesn't work, let me know, please. Okay. Let's try this, and then I'll have to play with it a little bit. Can you see this presentation or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I will bring it back up then. A Trip into History, Virginia. Can you see my first slide? Yes. Great. As you may or may not know, Virginia is for lovers. So this was a nice little thing they had at the travel plaza we came through, and the lady who worked there took a nice picture of us. So that's how it started. So off to a good start. And as I had mentioned, Colonial Williamsburg. Williamsburg, Virginia used to be the capital of Virginia back in the day. It is currently Richmond. They moved it. This is the governor's palace here, and my mother-in-law, my nephew, and my wife. They have a whole colonial town they built in Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg. And this place is quite amazing. Back in the day, believe it or not, they burned the whole thing down over numerous battles, but they recreated the whole thing, and they have recreated the governor's palace where the governor was. They brought in all this antique furniture, as you can see on the right, and a place setting there for a meal. And as they had pictures of it, I was told probably paintings as well, I would say back in the day, to know what it looked like. So they recreated the whole thing. So it's quite impressive. But there is a lot of walking there. So for those that don't like to walk, it is quite a long town, and there's lots of different things there. So we'll go into this a little bit. They actually had a movie at the tourist center as well. And this on the left, they have actors that walk around and talk about different things. So this lady was in the House of Burgess. So you can imagine time traveling back in the day. Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry were sitting in this very room, recreated room, and they're talking about all kinds of issues of back in the day. It is actually a courtroom here as well, and not shown. They actually had a higher area on the left where the rich folks would sit and just view the court proceedings, which is quite interesting, like a kind of a tourist event in a way. On the right, upstairs they had a room where, as you can imagine, they would meet afterwards and maybe discuss legal items of the day with their fancy chairs, possibly smoking a pipe, and getting things done to some degree. So it's kind of wild for sure. In Colonial Williamsburg, they had on the left a meeting room, and as you can see, an opportunity for a Toastmaster, myself, to say a few words to whoever might be sitting in the room. So I had to get my opportunity up there to pose for sure and say a few quotes, which was quite fun. They had period actors, as I said, and on the right, there is a silversmith, and they basically would melt down any type of silver they could get and recreate it into something you would want. The lady told us that often they'd pass their history on ahead of time before they passed. They might make a silver item, maybe a ring or something like that, that would be engraved with the person's name on it. So that would go to those people. I know my kids have tried to carve out everything in my house, to be honest, and my cars and everything else. I'm surprised their names aren't on those, to be honest. But they did. It's easier to melt and recreate with silver and gold. So she told us all about it, and they had a little shop in the back, which was interesting, and they actually made all this stuff. They had different actors as well that walk around in Colonial Williamsburg. But there also was it's called an historical triangle there. So Jamestown is in Virginia. So they have a Jamestown settlement and a Jamestown historical site. They recreated the typical town, and these are the buildings that they had there. And they also had actors and demonstrations of different things. On the right, you can see me holding a sword. That they had a sword lesson, believe it or not. And I got to hold the actual sword that they had, a period piece, and it actually wasn't as heavy as I thought it would be. I think I could probably handle that for a bit. Whether I could survive in a sword battle, that's a whole other issue. But with a little training, who knows? Might have been interesting. They didn't last long, these battles, that's for sure. Just they seemed like it was pretty easy to cut someone and be done with, dispatch them easily. They did have some natives, the actors there, that this gentleman here on the right was pretending to make, or actually was making arrowheads and spearheads from stone. That's what he did all day. He got paid for it. Pretty wild. And they had other people there that natives that were talking about the food and different things that they how they survived. They had the boats that the Jamestown settlers came in, replicas again, and my wife and her family that they came through Jamestown. They so that's why the picture of those three on the right, and they came in a ship. These settlers back in the day, the original settlers, very many of them crammed in small ships. So I walked amongst that ship, and I swear probably 10 people should be in there, and they had 50. So it was pretty insane. In the historical settlement for Jamestown, they also had flintlock gun demonstrations. They got to hold the actual musket, and they had actors that would talk about the food and how they prepared it and how they grew it and how they would survive. All very interesting things for sure. My wife, when we went to the historical settlement, found a heart-shaped rock, which I do not have a picture of, sadly. And she imagined that's where her settlers came and actually stood. I have no proof that that didn't happen, so I just went with it. That's probably a good thing. Another part of the historical triangle is Yorktown. Yorktown, the brink of war. If you remember back in the day, Revolutionary history, this is where Cornwallis surrendered, and finally we won after many years of battle. Cornered him there. Made happen by actually an African American spy who sat in and got information for the Marquis de Lafayette, believe it or not. There's a nice picture of George Washington there. It was a very long battle. They had cannon demonstrations there. And as you can see, they had the different items that they could shoot in the cannon, different grape shot, cannonballs. They had different types of cannons. They had a howitzer. They had a mortar, and this is a field cannon, I believe. No, this is a howitzer. But they had the demonstration of how they did it, and two people stood right next to it, and they had volunteers and everything. Somehow I contained myself not to volunteer. I probably should have. They asked for a very loud guy, and I definitely would have qualified. Additional period actors that they had there, recreating. They talked about what they would eat during the battles, and very small amounts, truthfully, of food, and I don't know how they had any energy to do anything, truthfully, and how they made it through everything. And the picture on the right is actually the field where Cornwallis surrendered, the surrender field. He did not actually come out himself. He sent a underling to surrender the sword, but that is what happened. And let's go ahead and stop sharing here. This will work. Let's end the show. Oh, darn it. Okay. Okay, and stop the share. And I ran over time, it looks like. But that's okay. I encourage you all to travel occasionally, go back in time, see if you'd survive or not, see if you had the skills to parry a sword, see if you'd be able to cook and make things happen. In fact, I dare you to do so. Fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gerald. It looks like we need a timer's report. Let's call on our timer. Timer, yes, okay. We have the times for our 3 speeches today. Mary came in at 5 minutes and 31 seconds. 5 minutes and 31 seconds. And then we had 2 speeches that were competing for time. But Sylvia, you did win the time battle. Sylvia's speech was 20 minutes and 55 seconds. So Sylvia went over time on that speech. And next we had Dr. Gerald. Dr. Gerald had a 5 to 7 minute speech, and he was 11 minutes and 1 second. So Dr. Gerald went over time. Therefore, there will be no voting for our speaker of the day because we had 2 speakers over time. And Mary, congratulations, speaker of the day. Congratulations. But we'll get back to that in a little bit. I'm going to procrastinate a little bit right now. We do have a general evaluator, but before I call our general evaluator into our meeting, I am going to call on our evaluators. David Licata, how did Mary do today with her speech?
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's terrific. All right, Mary, first thing I want to point out, that famous quotation, 95% of success is just showing up. And you won Speaker of the Day. And you showed up and you did a fine job. Now, what you did was, in your preparation was so ingenious. You hit all the topics that I love. And that really roped me in, and I'm sure it roped in the rest of the audience as well. But how can you go wrong when she starts out and includes Italy, Rome, cappuccino, and the David itself? Love that statue. And I did see that statue, but that's another speech. I'm sorry. Now, before you give another speech, and this is going to be nothing happens overnight, but what we're looking for you to improve on, you were a little bit too reliant on your notes, but that will come with time. You will grow out of that. I'm certain you will. So you've also got to take some time to work on your vocal variety. And when you're doing a speech, a travelogue, you did a travelogue because you related to us about your adventures in Bella Italia. So you got to remember to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So do the speech just like you arrived in Italy. We arrived at X, we went to B, and so on. And then you can round it off with a big ending on how you enjoyed yourself so much. I also want to salute you on all the facts that you shared with us. Your preparation was tremendous. But to reinforce what I said a second ago, you got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you're going to achieve that as we go on in your Toastmasters career. Of course, I was shocked that you had cappuccino after breakfast. It's just supposed to be for breakfast, but that's a whole nother speech as well, so I'll relent. You mentioned gelato. You mentioned all the things I love. Just hearing your speech this morning, I'm going to put on 5 pounds today. I'm looking forward to it too. So when you get your nervousness under control, Mary, you're going to be dynamite. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests.
Thank you very much, Dave. We will now hear from our second evaluator over in Studio B, Mr. Mike Licata, who will be evaluating Sylvia.
Thank you again. Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests, and especially Sylvia. So first, I want to apologize. The sheet I printed off from the website said speech length was 5 to 7 minutes, and then you changed it to 15 to 20. So I apologize for getting the time wrong in the first place. The second thing I want to tell you is it was a very, very well-researched speech. I think you hit on a lot of really important points, especially for a lot of newer families. My generation is warnings for parents on your opinions. That being said, I think that it's important when you do a speech as a Q&A session is you have to do a better job of budgeting your time. It was well researched. You spoke for 20 minutes and 55 seconds, which I have to give you a tremendous amount of credit for because it's something that I definitely couldn't do or I would have a lot of trouble doing. But when it comes to a Q&A speech, you have to I offer a couple of suggestions. One, maybe send a couple of questions that you would find interesting to a couple of different Toastmasters that you would know would be at the meeting so that they could offer up questions as part of it. So if you needed to maybe shorten the time or extend the time a little bit, it would make the speech easier and it would be tighter. I also have to give you credit for giving the speech on the first day back on Zoom. Zoom is harder to interrupt for a lot of people than when we're doing hybrid and you can you're in person, you can be interrupted and ask questions that way. Now, some of the other faults that you made today, because you spoke for so long, there were plenty of restarts. There were plenty of filler words. I heard a couple of you knows. I heard a couple of so's, and I heard a couple of ands. Now, it was bound to happen because you gave a longer speech. I have to give you a lot of credit for attempting the speech because, as an elective, when it comes to the higher, as you go further into pathways, it's important to remember that you have to challenge yourself. And I think maybe you challenge yourself a little bit too much because you left very little time for the Q&A part of the speech. I do have to give you a lot of credit for attempting a speech like this. You're still learning at Toastmasters, but you've been in for a couple of years. You've been an officer for a number of years, so maybe we're all still learning. That's why we come back every week. That's the important part of Toastmasters, is no matter what, we're always learning. So I have to give you credit for attempting a speech like this, but I do think there is a lot for you to work on, and I will leave it at that, Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our three evaluators. Now we need a timers report. Mr. Timer, how about a report on the times of our three evaluators? Let's
Well,
do it.
maybe we could do one more evaluator.
Oh, well, you know, I was procrastinating with all of the things I was doing here. And you know, Mr. Florio, I did have you on my notes.
I wanted to wait.
It said
as long
that you were going to evaluate Dr. Gerald, but I thought maybe you might have went on that trip. You just jumped in the car and took off. Let's hear your evaluation, Mike, please.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, our guests, and especially Gerald. Gerald, wonderful speech today. And I think the time, the theme of time was definitely important for you today. I really enjoyed, I liked the background right from the beginning. I wasn't sure about time travel, where you were going with it, if you were going to go forward in time or backward in time. It kind of looked like with your background that you might go forward in time, which would have been neat, but that's fine. You went backwards and you tried to pack a lot into this speech with a limited amount of time. And I think that's where you probably ran into some troubles, because obviously you went over today. Now, what could you have done maybe to help you pack it all in? You talked about Atlantic City that you went to. That was kind of another trip that you did along with what you did to Virginia, and maybe you could have eliminated that one because it's only 5 to 7. Now, granted, we want to hear about all of your adventures. There's no doubt about it. And I wish you had 20 minutes, really. You could have kept going on and on for sure. And it's always very interesting. Now, you had a little technical difficulty with the photos, but once you pulled that together, I really enjoy the photos because that helps tie it in. Just to talk about a trip to, say, Virginia and all the neat things that you saw, it's not enough. You have to have photos, and I'm glad that you know that. You're a DTM. You know that you've got to have some kind of a prop there to help you draw people in and keep their attention. I thought, I love it when you have photos of yourself and your family brought in and that you mug for the camera. It's a lot of fun. And I enjoy seeing you and your family having a good time. You went over the arrowheads, the boats, the guns, the cannons, all these things that I normally wouldn't see, and I'm sure the people in the audience wouldn't normally see either. And in the end, you tied it all together, and you didn't just call people to say, hey, go ahead and do this. You dared them. You dared them to travel. So I really enjoyed the fact that you did that as well, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mike. And I apologize there for missing you, but I didn't really miss you because I knew you were still finishing up your notes for your evaluation. All right.
And I appreciate you giving me that time because I procrastinated a little bit.
Mike, anytime I can help you out. You didn't dawdle at all there. All right. Let's get a timers report. Dave Licata, 2 minutes, 45 seconds, qualifies. Mike Licata, 3 minutes and 16 seconds, also qualifies. And Mike, even though you had that little bit of extra time, you stayed within the time, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. All evaluators have qualified, and our poll will be coming up shortly so you can vote on who your favorite evaluator was. We're running on time here, so what I'm going to do is we have our WAG master who has to go to a meeting shortly, so I'm going to call on our WAG master before I call our general evaluator for a report. Please give us a report, Beth, on how we did today.
I started to do it in the chat, but we had our dawdle word started really well and kind of petered out a little bit. So that wasn't so great. We had a number of starts and stops today, which I think made a couple of our speakers go over, just extended our meeting a little longer than we normally would. We had 19 ums and ahs. Not such a great day for those. A few likes. I did like a few words: baffled, meandering, overstimulating, and addictive pull. So that is my report for today, and I apologize. I do have to go to an appointment, so I have to be going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beth, and before you had to leave, and thank you for your report today. I will now call on our general evaluator, Marty. Marty, please give us your evaluation of how the meeting went today and our evaluators.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guest. I will be brief for the sake of time. My duty, again, is to evaluate the Toastmaster of the day and the evaluators. Larry, wonderful meeting. The meeting started on time. You had all the roles filled, which was quite impressive. And it looks like we're going to end on time. Wonderful theme. Wonderful program. Well done, Larry. Moving on to the evaluators. All three of our evaluators gave some wonderful and encouraging feedback to our three speakers, to Mary, to Sylvia, and to Gerald. Each evaluator did a wonderful job using the constructive critique, also known as the sandwich approach, giving some good feedback, positive encouragement, some things to work on, and motivating them to come back again to speak. Wonderful job to our evaluators. And I don't believe we have a quiz master today. If we don't, that will wrap up my general evaluation. And I would like to turn control back over to Larry to wrap up the meeting and perhaps have the guests share any thoughts on the meeting. Larry.
Thank you very much, Marty. We do have a quiz master today, and our quiz master is Jill. Jill, you want to give us a couple of quick quizzes?
Sure, I will. But I only got a couple questions. It's kind of hard to pull questions out of some of the speeches today. But back to Zach's inspiration. What is today?
Oh,
A present.
The present. Yes, it was. And what is the shuffling of roles?
Last minute changes,
Housekeeping.
housekeeping.
And what was the word of the day?
Dawdle.
Oh, everybody got
Say
that.
it. Everyone say it.
Okay, so that's my quiz master of the day.
Thank you very much, Jill. As Toastmasters, we try to be good stewards of time for everyone. I will give our winners today. Our best table topics was Esther. Esther, congratulations. And in Zoom world, we do normally we'll give a clap like this. But Esther, would you like to tell us how you enjoyed our meeting today?
I enjoyed it very much. For the first meeting that I have attended, I'm very impressed with the overall structure. And yeah, just very much enjoyed my time with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing, Esther. I will be asking our other guest, Teresa, in just a moment, but before we do, I would like to congratulate Mary for your speech today. You are our #1 speaker today. Congratulations. And we do have a virtual ribbon. We're going to hand it to you. Here it goes. So, Mary, thank you. Now, we do have another guest with us today, and that is Teresa. Teresa, tell us a little bit of how you enjoyed our meeting today.
Hi, everyone. I enjoyed it. Obviously, you could see I need it. I say a lot. My brother's been a Toastmaster for years and years, and he's been telling me to join for, God, it's been probably about 10 years now. So finally, I've come. So welcome. I like it. It's very same. I like the structure as well, Esther. So, and also being on Zoom, being early. I had a little one that came over that tried waving to everyone. So, yeah, I'm excited to, kind of come into this and learn what Toastmaster is all about. Even though I have an idea, but it's being in it's like it's a whole nother thing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I must say, I was writing quickly, and it is Therese, correct?
It is Therese, yes.
Okay, I called you Teresa, but I was looking down and I'm writing in 4 different directions.
No worries,
Ther-
honestly. It doesn't even faze me anymore.
Well, Teresa, it was a pleasure having you and Esther as our guests today. Remember, it's worth getting up for.
It is.
For Toastmasters, and we meet same time, same channel next week, same Zoom link. With being a good steward of time, what I'd like to do at this time is call our end and adjourn our meeting so our recording.
Evaluator. Who won evaluation?
You missed that already?
No, I didn't miss it. You did.
No, I said our top evaluator with today was, drum roll please, Mike Florio.
Okay.
Mike Florio won as our evaluator today. And that was something that I procrastinating and writing down, but I did get the message from Len. So with that, we will stop our recording, but we will open up for if anybody has a little post toasty with in regard